WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Freetown, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and across the world at wadr.org. This is Newslink. First, the headline stories. ECOWAS backs Nigeria over Trump's Christian genocide accusation and calls for global solidarity to fight terrorism. Resident doctors in Nigeria continue indefinite strike despite government's announced intervention of nearly 60%.
It's important we take them to a finality. It's important that concrete decisions are written on paper with actions, with timelines.
Beninese incumbent Talon addresses emerging economic and political concerns.
Everyone involved has signed a parliamentary governance agreement, except for the Democrats who refused.
And in Guinea, CSOs and some political parties reject Doumbouya's candidacy in December 28 polls. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Glad to have you join us. Newslink begins with this major development, which is a statement issued by the Economic Community of West African States, expressing its steadfast support for Nigeria amidst accusations of religious persecution by the United States. The regional organization refutes these claims, emphasizing that terrorist violence impacts all communities without discrimination. In a statement on Tuesday, ECOWAS reiterated its backing for Abuja while drawing attention to the growing threat of terrorist violence across West Africa. As Francis Boniface reports, U.S. President Donald Trump has accused the Nigerian government of failing to end what he referred to as Christian genocide.
ECOWAS, in its response to U.S. President Donald Trump's accusations of Christian genocide in Nigeria, highlighted the non-discriminatory nature of terrorist attacks. The sub-regional organization affirmed that extremists target all civilian groups, including Muslims, Christians, and followers of other faiths. The organization urges that such narratives could exacerbate insecurity and disrupt social harmony in West Africa, calling on the United Nations and global allies to assist member countries in combating terrorist threats. It further urges the international community to reject unfounded claims targeting specific religious groups or suggesting genocide in the sub-region, describing them as misleading and harmful. The organization concludes by appealing for unified global support in addressing terrorism, noting that it remains a threat to all communities without exception. President Bola Tinubu's spokesperson, Daniel Bwala, had stated the government's intent to collaborate with international partners to bolster national security after Donald Trump labeled Nigeria as a country of particular concern. While the American leader also threatens a potential military intervention in Nigeria if no action is taken, it is important to note that independent reports compiled over recent years consistently confirm that terrorism-related violence does not target individuals based on gender, religion, or ethnicity.
That was a report voiced by Sankole Janko. Still on the same matter, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, has dismissed allegations by U.S. President Donald Trump that Christians are being persecuted in the country. Speaking in Abuja after a meeting with other security chiefs, the CDS said Nigeria's security challenges are rooted in terrorism and banditry, not religious persecution. He reaffirmed the government's commitment to tackling insecurity and expressed openness to international cooperation in the fight against insecurity.
We're just coming out from the General Security Appraiser Committee meeting. Though this is a very special one, it's something we do periodically, but this was specifically convened because of the current development where Nigeria is being accused of persecuting Christians. But I want to make it categorically clear here that no Christian is being persecuted in Nigeria. We are facing insecurity, especially terrorism, and it's something that's been affecting Nigeria for quite some time now. But as a group, talking about security heads, we've been doing our very best to checkmate this act of terrorism within the space of Nigeria. And you will recall recently, that's just last week, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, recalibrated the security architecture by bringing on board officers of proven integrity who are seasoned in asymmetric warfare to add impetus to our operations. I want to assure Nigerians going forward that we're going to add more to what we're doing, add more impetus to our operations, and ensure that we checkmate this act of terrorism within Nigeria. And you know very well that terrorism is a global issue, it's a global problem. There are several countries that are challenged in that respect, and it calls for collective effort. So if we have countries out there who are ready to support Nigeria.
General Olufemi Oluyede is the newly appointed Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, CDS. Now we stay longer in Nigeria as the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Isiaq Salako, has appealed to the striking resident doctors to suspend strike. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the minister said the federal government has cleared about 60% of the backlog of arrears owed to health workers. However, the president of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, emphasized the need for further dialogue to address all outstanding issues. Suleiman insists that the nationwide indefinite strike, which began on Saturday, will continue until the government fully meets its demands. Among them, promotion arrears, upgrade arrears, and recruitment allowance, some of which have been pending for over 5 years.
I appreciate that the federal government is coming out, especially the Federal Ministry of Health, to talk about these issues. But it's important we take them to a finality. It's important we finalize them, we agree on them. It's important that concrete decisions are written on paper with actions, with timelines, so that it's something we can take back to NEC. NEC said 19 demands are minimum. Otherwise, strike continues. I'm happy to be at the negotiation table. I'm happy to put some of these things to paper so that we agree on them, we move on finally. Specialist allowance is also there, the infrastructure, the manpower issues. They talked about employing 20,000 people last year. We are good with that. But they should also break it down per cadre, per profession. And how many of them came to pick up appointments? How many of them are still in Nigeria working? So that these things are juxtaposed against the reality that 20 years ago or 10 years ago, we had 25,000 residents in Nigeria. Now we have barely about 11,000.
Dr. Mohammed Suleiman is president of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we stream live on Facebook and YouTube at WADR English. Let's now take you to Benin, where President Patrice Talon addressed the nation about current political developments. In a special interview on Tuesday, November 4, Talon touched on issues of national interest, such as the electoral calendar for the 2026 general elections. He also highlighted matters arising, including the reform of Benin's party system, the fate of the opposition Democrat Party, and the race to succeed him. Imo Edet has the following report.
During the special interview late Tuesday, Patrice Talon responded to several emerging concerns regarding the rejection of the candidacy files of the main opposition Democrats Party presidential candidate. After a legal battle, Talon clarified without hesitation.
Everyone involved has signed a parliamentary governance agreement, except for the Democrats who refused. The Prime Minister also prohibited the Democrats from signing any agreement with any party, including the FCBE. Vespat being a moderate opposition party, the FCBE's agreement could have been crucial. Had the Democrats signed a parliamentary governance pact with the FCBE, their presidential candidate duo might not have faltered, even in the face of defections within their ranks.
malgré la défection d'un de leurs.
While President Talon acknowledges that a presidential election without the main opposition party tarnishes the integrity of the electoral process, he rejects calls for reform of the political party system and the electoral code.
I must admit that the current state of electoral dynamics is far from satisfying me. It tarnishes the image of our country. However, this doesn't mean we should blame the reform of the partisan system nor the electoral code. As someone who has become both the scapegoat for President Boni Yaye and a convenient target for everything going wrong with the Democrats, what else can I say to avoid being condemned? I am the perfect culprit.
Pour ne pas être condamné. Je suis le coupable idéal.
Patrice Talon accused his predecessor, Yayi Boni, of sabotaging all the reforms and public policies of his government, regardless of the sector. Over the past few weeks, tensions have escalated between Boni Yayi, the leader of the opposition Democrats Party, and the current President Talon. Both have leveled accusations against each other, claiming efforts to interfere with and manipulate Benin's political landscape.
Imoradad with details of WADR's Aziz Adam Sule's report in Cotonou. In Guinea, several opposition political parties and some civil society actors have rejected the transitional President General Mamadou Doumbouya's candidacy. They accuse him of betraying his oath and his commitment to hand over power to civilians at the end of the transition. In a strong statement following Doumbouya's candidacy for the December 28 presidential election, the Forces Vive of Guinea denounced his decision, describing it as a betrayal of the transition oath. This political coalition includes political parties such as the UFDG of Selou Darlin Jallow, the UFR of Sidia Touré, and the RPG Arkansas of former President Alpha Condé. According to them, the transitional president, General Mamadou Doumbouya, is trampling on the transitional charter and violating his commitment before the Supreme Court, the people of Guinea, and the international community. Meanwhile, a coalition of justice advocates is calling on the Liberian government to address critical delays hindering the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court and the National Anti-Corruption Court. Concerns are growing over the creation of these institutions, despite President Joseph Boakar's executive orders 131 and 148 authorizing their existence. A section of the Liberian society already doubts the government's commitment to accountability. On Tuesday, civil society organizations and justice advocates convened in Monrovia, the nation's capital, demanding a shift from statements to action implementation after years of discussion. From Monrovia, Abraham Parker reports.
The group alleges that the government is undermining the court's establishment through insufficient budgetary support. Adolphus Kapat says Liberians have endured pain and seek justice from these criminals, some of whom remain protected within government institutions.
We are very disappointed. We have investigated and found out that for the entire 1 year, this office has operated two things on its funding, have kept it down.
The debate surrounded two bills introduced by Senate Pro Tempore Nyobli Kanga Lawrence and Senator Joseph Jala, both aimed at establishing the same code. Critics argue that these bills contradict Joint Resolution number 001/2024 and deviate from the 2021 bill proposed by the Liberian National Bar Association, which stipulated the inclusion of a foreign justice to ensure impartiality. Senator Joseph Jala defends his argument.
These two courts are created under the auspices of the Liberian Constitution. When trial go on, if you are found guilty, you will take an appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will hear your appeal. Whatever the Supreme Court will say will be final.
But the coalition of justice advocates openly criticizes these parallel legislative efforts.
We are afraid that a set of new developments that have occurred will affect and derail this process if we do not swiftly, in the best interest of our country and our people, permit us to highlight these problems.
The COS are demanding the immediate release of finance, enhanced security for staff, and a halt to the Senate's competing legislative initiatives. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
More on legal matters. The Circuit Court in Accra has granted the Member of Parliament for Asutifi North bail for 150,000 cedi or $13,700. Ebenezer Wadr was slapped with the fine in the case relating to his alleged role in the assault of military officers from the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat in the Ahafo region. Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament has condemned the incident and served notice that the House will not shield any MP involved in such incidents. From Accra, Nadiri Tete reports.
The Member of Parliament for Isutifi North, Ebenezer Wadr, appeared in court on Tuesday, November 4, on provisional charges including conspiracy to assault a public officer, assault on a public officer, conspiracy to cause unlawful damage, causing unlawful damage, and rioting with weapons. His plea was not taken. He is alleged to have played a role in the incident where an angry mob mobilized, vandalized property and assaulted military officers from the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, NIMOS. As part of his bail conditions, the court directed that the accused must not leave the Greater Accra region without notifying the investigators. He is also to report to them once every 2 weeks until further notice. The court cautioned him against any conduct that could frustrate the ongoing investigation. Other suspects, including Zakira Yakubu, one Alex, and others, remain at large. The case has been adjourned to December 1, 2025. Meanwhile, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bakpin has condemned the incidents involving the MP, stressing that Parliament will not shield any member found culpable.
While I'm yet to be fully briefed on the matter, I want to take this opportunity to condemn in no uncertain terms the attack on the team of security officers who are being assigned to help deal with the menace of Galamsey, which has to be dealt with robustly. I have therefore instructed the Office of the Clerk and the Legal Services Office to provide all the needed support to the investigation by the Ghana Police Service within the framework of the 1992 Constitution, the laws of this country, and the standing orders of the House.
Many are closely watching how government handles this case, with some describing it as a test case for the new administration's commitment to fighting illegal mining. For WDR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. We are live at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS backs Nigeria over Trump's Christian genocide accusation and calls for global solidarity to fight terrorism. Resident doctors continue indefinite strike in Nigeria despite government's announced intervention over nearly 60%. Beninese incumbent Talon addresses emerging economic and political concerns. In Guinea, CSOs and some political actors reject Doumbouya's candidacy in December 28 presidential polls. Still in the news, we have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. In Mauritania, the Supreme Court on Tuesday upheld the 15-year prison sentence of the former president who was prosecuted for illicit enrichment. The final verdict against Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz marks the end of a legal showdown that began shortly after he departed from office. Abdelaziz, 69, was initially sentenced in December 2023 to 5 years in prison, but in May 2025, the appeal court increased his sentence to 15 years. The court found that the former Mauritanian leader had used his position to amass a considerable fortune. His defense team appealed to the Supreme Court, which rejected his appeal, thus upholding the lower court's decision. His conviction makes him one of the few former African leaders to be sanctioned for illicit enrichment. Now to some health news. Togo has launched its national awareness campaign dedicated to the fight against male cancers. Each year, this campaign highlights a cause too often overlooked: men's health, particularly prostate cancer. Augustine Colley tells us more.
After Pink October, dedicated to raising awareness about breast cancer, it's now time for Blue November. This month is entirely devoted to information, prevention, and open discussion around prostate cancer, while also breaking taboos related to men's health. According to the Togolese Cancer Control Organization, more than 500 cases were diagnosed in 2022, with 294 deaths recorded. These figures highlight the urgent need to step up awareness campaigns and emphasize the importance of early screening. Stephen Awite is president of the Togolese League Against Cancer.
Prostate cancer is one of the most common types of cancer affecting men. Unfortunately, it is still surrounded by numerous stereotypes and taboos. Many men still believe that getting tested questions their masculinity or feel ashamed to even discuss it. Others fear the results or assume it only happens to others. This kind of mindset often delays early diagnosis. November has been designated as a month to raise awareness about prostate and testicular cancer, serving as a time of action with solidarity similar to how Pink October focuses on women's health.
Across the country, the League is organizing low-cost screening sessions in partnership with health centers, says Stephen Awite.
We encourage all men to visit participating centers and take advantage of the discounted screening campaign, which will run until Friday, November 28. Turning prevention into a regular habit is something we strongly urge all men to embrace.
It is worth recalling that prostate cancer is the most common cancer among men. Early detection allows, in most cases, for effective treatment and offers much better chances of recovery.
A report by WADR's Silvio Ouedraogo in Lomé and presented to you by Augustine Colley.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview this afternoon is a focus on the region Nigeria-US saga, which is attracting attention from several quarters, institutions, and governments. The Chinese government, through its foreign ministry, Tuesday backs Nigeria, just as the sub-regional body ECOWAS made its stance known. The Economic Community of West African States insists that terrorism affects communities regardless of gender, religion, or political affiliation. It further calls on the global community to support nations in their fight against insurgency. But can ECOWAS move from statements to action? And how crucial is the deployment of the standby force? Dr. Salahuddin Hashim, regional security expert, explains first by highlighting the gap in Nigeria's foreign policy alignment.
I think fundamentally, Nigeria lost an opportunity to put forward its robust diplomatic stature when to appoint career ambassadors in the last 2 years, not just only to the U.S., but again to most parts of the globe. And that is where quite a number of diplomatic shuttles oftentimes happen. Even if there had been some rhetoric to the U.S., those diplomatic community become the first point of contact where those counter-narratives would have happened. But unfortunately, we don't have it. Two is that our foreign policy independence very lately has also influenced what is currently happening. And the question that readily comes to mind is that, is this issue of religion or retribution? If it is an issue of religion, then of course it suggests very clearly that there is a clear balancing in terms of threat. And that is because threat does not select its victim. There has been a universal attacks both on every form of tribes and religion in the country in the past 1 decade. The recently concluded UN General Assembly, the Nigerian government took a stance on the issue of Palestine and Gaza, and that was a direct jab on the allies of US. And most importantly is that the recent hobnobbing of Nigeria with the BRICS nation has also thrown up a lot of concern.
So, Dr. Salah, whether it's a case of a retribution, like you said, or not, is this more like a wake-up call to the government to do the needful?
We cannot take away the fact that for the past decade, Nigeria has been confronted very largely with a very high rate of insecurity. And this is a total challenge that unfortunately both the state and its security apparatus have failed to be able to manage. And despite the fact that we have also designed national security strategy and the national counterterrorism framework to be able to help us contain and prevent all of this, we have not found the module to be able to adequately implement this document. And it is also because of the corruption that has been embedded within the defense architecture, where people have now commercialized the entire insecurity and made it a paradox of plenty. So the more money you pump into defense and security architecture, the larger the scale of insecurity. So that is a fact. You cannot controvert it. And that is because a number of efforts to mitigate some of this approach over time, government has failed. The issue of ungoverned spaces, porous border, governance issue, and other socio-economic indicators that are continuing.
Now, here we are. The ECOWAS has joined to react to the recent accusation leveled against the Nigerian government for allowing Christian genocide to take place. What do you make of that statement? Is it just enough that it has issued a statement backing up Nigeria, or should it go beyond that to having a holistic approach now to fighting insurgency, terrorism, and all forms of criminality in countries of West Africa?
My point is very clear that ECOWAS itself has become an institution that can only back but cannot bite. Since the transition from ECOWAS of the states to ECOWAS of the people, ECOWAS has not demonstrated the capability to allow the voices of citizens within the membership states to influence its policies. And that is because, again, there are leadership within the region that have held tight to power for quite a while, and ECOWAS has not been able to yield to the voice of the people or develop a mechanism that allows that transition to indeed operationalize and have some level of direct impact. And that is the reason why the backing of ECOWAS to Nigeria may not actually translate into anything or yield any sort of value. And that is because it is very clear that ECOWAS would continue to amplify the leadership of the state rather than the voices of the people. And I think, again, even though it is strategic, but I don't see the value that that particular alliance or support might translate to.
And do you think it's about time that ECOWAS really pushes on with the operationalization of the standby force?
Yes, the ECOWAS standby force is a huge resource, but how you use it is also very fundamental. But for me, I think generally there is also the issue of accountability that needs to also be further interrogated within the funding for the ECOWAS standby force in terms of how they have been able to resource them lately, and each member state also willing to contribute to the standby force. And that for me is also the fundamental. Every country within the region now has their own particular problem. So, and most of their men are already overstretched. How do you want to extract from already lean resources to contribute to engage in this very strategic assignment? I think for me, it is something to also review once again.
Dr. Salahuddin Hashim is a regional security expert. In the world of sports, Cameroon, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, and Mali will compete in the lineup for the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON after world rankings were used to determine the final four qualifiers. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) took the decision to expand the finals from 12 to 16 teams midway through preliminaries for next year's tournament in Morocco. Reigning champions Nigeria were among 11 sides to book their tickets in the second and final qualifying round last month, and those eliminated at the stage had hoped to have another chance to reach North Africa via potential playoffs. And finally, Cristiano Ronaldo has revealed he plans to retire as soon as possible. The Portugal and Al-Nassr star prepares for a tearful end to his glittering career. Ronaldo discussed his thoughts on retirement and his life after football in an interview with Piers Morgan Uncensored. The 40-year-old, who has scored a total of 952 goals, is one of the most decorated players in the history of the game, but the end is in sight for his astonishing career. And that's it at midday for Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Falile Su and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Join the conversation on our social media platforms X, Instagram, and Facebook on WADR English. We stream live at WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a rebroadcast of our gender program 50-50 with Na Diritete. To be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. by the second edition of our comprehensive news package in French, Info Chez Vous, with Mam Anta Ndur. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.